UFC 308 is this weekend, and today we're going to be doing a full card breakdown for the card, but we're going to save predictions till later in the week. So stick around to hear my thoughts on the full card for UFC 308. I'm Wyatt, and this is Fight Society. We will start with the very first fight of the night, Ibo Arslan versus Rafael Kekera, a 205 matchup. And Ibo Arslan, if you remember, he fought on the Atlantic City card, I believe it was. Dude is just roided out of his mind. He's got gyno boobs. You can see from a mile away. Really not a whole lot on this fight. It's a guy from that part of the world that is fighting a Brazilian. And here we're going to have Ibo Arslan landing big hooks, cooking with his gyno power. And that's what I think for that fight. Anyways, I don't really care about that one. Moving on from there, Rinat Fakhretdinov versus Nursultan Ruziboyev. You have Rinat Fakhretdinov. He KO'd Kevin Lee, and then he had a draw with Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos, and then he beat Nicholas Dalby. He's going up against Nursultan Ruziboyev, who was at 85. If you remember, he beat Cedricus Dumas, huge fan and friend of the channel. Cedricus Dumas, by the way. Ruziboyev beat Dumas by poking him in the eye. It should have been a DQ or a no contest, but he got a TKO win. Then he lost to Joaquin Buckley at 170. I guess he's decided to stay at 170 pounds. He is going to be fighting Rinat Fakhretdinov. Rinat Fakhretdinov is crispy. He's got good boxing. He's got good takedowns. He's going up against a gigantic welterweight who's 6'4", I believe, 6'3" or 6'4" at welterweight in Nursultan Ruziboyev. Ruziboyev has a lot of wins and he has a lot of finishes, but he's fought a lot of bums. He has a lot of submissions against guys that are not good grapplers. He's fought, guys, a lot of bums, okay? And he has quite a bit of quit in him, and he's willing to cheat, which may help him. You always got to respect a guy. You know, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. But Nursultan Ruziboyev is just not UFC level, in my opinion. He's very experienced. He's very sneaky in some ways. But Rinat Fakhretdinov is very well-rounded and very lethal. I haven't seen that from Ruziboyev. I think that Rinat Fakhretdinov is going to look very good in this fight. From there, we have, another victim or another participant of the Eye Poke card of the year, which was the UFC Atlantic City card, Bruno Silva, who nearly was blinded by Chris Weidman. And same thing, did not get a DQ or a no contest. He got a TKO loss, which is crazy. He's going up against Ismail Nordayev, who despite being 1-2 in his last 3 is still signed to the UFC. So middleweight bout there. Moving on from there, we have Farid Basharat against Victor Hugo. This is a good test for a Basharat. He's 12-0, yet to be very harshly tested. He's going up against Victor Hugo, who's 25-4, has a really good record, really experienced. This should be a good fight as well. I expect a lot of this to happen on the feet. Moving on from there, we have Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Justin Tafa. Kennedy Nzechukwu is moving up from 205 to fight Justin Tafa. I guess he decided, I'm done fighting good fighters. I'm athletic and big. I'm going to beat up fat guys now. So he moved up to heavyweight, and he's fighting Justin Tafa, who, luckily enough, is just a fat guy. He's not good. Doesn't have any defensive grappling. Basically just swings until he runs out of gas or gets taken down. Really no pushback. Kennedy Nzechukwu is going to look like a 205er at heavyweight. He's going to cook. Moving on from there, we have Abus Magomedov going up against Bruno Ferreira. Wow, this is a really good card, especially the prelims. Bruno Ferreira just had that spinning elbow KO of Dustin Stoltzfus. I think it was on the St. Louis card. He's going up against Abus Magomedov, who almost got a title shot if he would have beat Sean Strickland back in the day. But that ended up being how Strickland got his title shot to fight Israel Adesanya in Sydney, where he became champion. Now, this is going to be a fun fight. Both guys like to strike. You have a longer, rangier fighter in Abus Magomedov, and then you have a shorter, stockier middleweight with very intense punching power from Bruno Ferreira. It's going to be a matter of how quickly does Abus gas, because Abus Magomedov gasses in every fight. Don't get me wrong, literally every fight. And it's just a matter of if he can defend himself from big shots thrown by Ferreira after he gasses, or if he can win the fight before then. But I'm going to probably lean towards Ferreira in this fight. Come back around later in the week for full card predictions. I'll do it on a live stream, but I'm definitely leaning towards Ferreira in this fight. Said Nurmagomedov and Daniel Santos is the next fight. We have a Nurmagomedov that's not related to the famous Nurmagomedovs, and we have Daniel Santos, who, if I'm not mistaken, is a shootbox fighter, teammate of Charles Oliveira, Diego Lima shootbox, fantastic team. This is going to be a high-level fight. This is going to be two very high-level 135-pounders with relatively close odds. Minus 250 is not terrible. Plus 205, not huge, 2-1, but not huge. This is going to be a very competitive fight. I'm going to lean towards Nurmagomedov, but I think the winner of this fight gets a ranked opponent at 135 pounds or their one win from that. Moving on from there, we have one of the most high-level fights you will be able to see in the UFC that is not between ranked opponents. You have Matus Rebecki against Miktebek Orobay at 155 pounds. You have Poland's Rebecki, Kyrgyzstan's Orobay. I wouldn't call Rebecki a prospect because he's a little bit older. Both of these guys are up and coming, unranked. Orobay has been like crowned as the future of the division by the Team Alpha Male team. And I agree with them. I think this guy's legit. He's well-rounded. He's a dog. He hits hard. He has cardio. He'll have gruesome grappling exchanges late in the third round of fights. I think that this is a fantastic fight. If you want to see high-level MMA that's between two guys that you might not be very familiar with, and you just want to see high-level MMA with no fanfare, and I don't want to say no fanfare, but no promotion attached to it, because they're definitely not promoting this fight compared to obviously how big the other fights on the card are. If you want to just see high-level MMA with no fanfare, this is the fight. Moving on from there, we have the featured prelim of the night, a couple of washed welterweights. You have RDA, who's ranked 14th, technically at lightweight, but he says he's done it at lightweight, so he should be taken out of the rankings there. He's going up against Jeff Neal, who's ranked 10th. These guys are gatekeepers at this point. It's basically, okay, they fight each other. We have a good ESPN Plus featured pay-per-view prelim. And then from there, the winner fights something that doesn't matter. And then the loser does something that doesn't matter. And then the winner has to fight a prospect, or both of them fight prospects. I don't even know why they're fighting each other. Let's get some new guys in these rankings. You have a bunch of guys at the 170 rankings. You have prospects that are ready to be title fight contenders. You have Ian Gary, Jack Della Maddalena, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Joaquin Buckley. Who else? You got Carlos Prates is about to break into the rankings. But then aside from that, you got a bunch of old guys that don't fight that often anymore. Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman, Gilbert Burns, like RDA, Jeff Neal, Neil Magny. Those guys need to get out of the rankings. Make them fight prospects. Don't make them fight each other. Make them fight prospects. Moving on from there, we have the main card opener of Shara Magomedov against Armen Petrosyan. I think that Shara Magomedov is overrated. He hasn't proved anything yet to make me think that he can hang with the top of the middleweight division. They've talked about him fighting Marvin Vettori. I don't think that's a good idea. Even though Marvin Vettori sucks, I don't think it's a good idea because he has some wrestling, some toughness, a fucking insane chin. But anyways, that doesn't matter. He's fighting another kickboxer in this fight, in Armen Petrosyan, so his weaknesses are not going to get tested in this fight. Now, with that said, he still might have problems with Petrosyan, but it is going to be happening in his world where he wants the fight to take place, which is why the odds slightly lean towards Shara, but I'm also going to take Shara Bullet in this fight. Moving on from there, we have Magomed Ankalaev against Aleksandar Rakic. Magomed Ankalaev is coming off of a win over Johnny Walker. He wanted a title fight. He's not getting it. He's fighting Aleksandar Rakic, who lost to Yuri Prohaska after badly hurting Yuri Prohaska in the first round at UFC 300. This is a really tough fight. Both of these guys are well-rounded, good strikers, good grapplers, very strong. Even though the odds are heavily in favor of Magomed Ankalaev, I would not be surprised to see Aleksandar Rakic win this fight. It's probably going to be a dogfight, but I could see him winning in fairly easy fashion, and I'd much rather see Rakic in talks for a title fight than Ankalaev. I just don't want to see Ankalaev as a champion. So come back around later in the week, and I'll do a full breakdown for that fight as well with a video for it, so come back around for that. And then some of these other fights, if I don't do videos for them, I'm going to do a full card breakdown with picks on a live stream later this week as well. Moving on from there, we have Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige. Two guys in the top 15 at featherweight. Lerone Murphy's coming off of a win over Edson Barbosa. Dan Ige is coming off of a loss to Diego Lopez at UFC 303 on 4 hours notice. Now, you can't take anything away from Dan Ige for losing that fight. So I just look at it as he took a fight, he got an extra paycheck. I'm not looking at it as, oh, he's coming off a loss, even though he is. It's not as big of a deal. Lerone Murphy is coming off of a win over Edson Barbosa in an Apex main event where he frankly schooled Edson Barbosa, made Edson Barbosa look old and no longer elite. Lerone Murphy is well-rounded. I think he's going to win this fight most likely, but I could see Dan Ige mixing it up enough to get a decision win, but I'm going to lean towards Lerone Murphy by decision. Moving on from there, we have right here for the co-main event of UFC 308, we have what was supposed to be the main event of UFC Saudi Arabia on June 22nd, which ended up being Rob Whittaker versus Iskram Alaskarov when Khamzat pulled out due to sickness. Now, if this fight takes place, we'll finally get it, and it'll be the first time that we've seen Khamzat in a year. It's crazy how little he fights now. 4 fights in 60 days to 4 fights in 4 years is crazy. Now, this fight's very interesting. I'm going to do a singular video for just this fight as well. Khamzat is him for 5 or 6 minutes, maybe 7. After that, he's in trouble, and this is a 5-round fight. 5-round number 1 contenders fight, co-main event. Rob Whittaker's coming off of 2 wins against Paulo Costa and Ikram Alaskarov. He went through some adversity in the Paulo Costa fight, made it through, won by decision, and then absolutely smoked Ikram Alaskarov, showed Ikram Alaskarov that there's levels to this. And I think that what happens here is that if Khamzat's going to win, he's going to win in the first round or maybe the first 7 minutes. He's going to get vicious ground and pound off through top control and hunt a submission or a ground and pound finish. If he doesn't get that, if Rob Whittaker survives that, Rob Whittaker is going to whoop Khamzat's ass until he either gets a finish or a 48-47 decision, maybe even 49-46. But there's 2 clear-cut ways that this fight goes, and it's either Whittaker by late stoppage / decision because Khamzat gasses, or it's Khamzat getting an early finish, submission or ground and pound TKO in the first round and a half or so. So come back around later this week for that video. We move on to the main event, Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. You have Ilia Topuria, who just won the belt back in February against Alex Volkanovski, where he KO'd him in the 2nd round. He's going up against Max Holloway, who won the BMF title against Justin Gaethje at UFC 300 with the knockout of the year. Both of these guys are on fire right now. Publicity-wise, performance-wise, fanfare-wise, this is a huge fight. And they always do big fights in Abu Dhabi. It made sense that when Islam wasn't able to fight this year that they did this fight. It makes perfect sense, especially with Ilia being over from that part of the world in Georgia, Spain. There's a connection there. Ilia is a -230 favorite. I know there's a lot of people saying that Ilia is going to KO Max. That's kind of the way I'm leaning. I think it's very possible given the way that Max struggles with shorter opponents and with Ilia's crispy boxing and his knockout power. So this is a huge title fight. I think that Ilia, if he wins, may move up and fight Islam. If not, he's going to rematch Volk. If Max Holloway wins, it's interesting because maybe you do Volk 4, Max versus Volk 4, or you have him move up or fight Diego Lopez. It's weird if Max wins because he lost to Volk 3 times. But if Max loses and Ilia wins, I think Max Holloway versus Conor McGregor for the BMF is what happens for Max next, because I think Max deserves big fights. He gives us viral moments, historical moments, and if he comes up short in this one, I think you throw him in there with McGregor for the BMF. I think you do the cash grab. Forget Dan Hooker. I think you do BMF, Holloway, McGregor in Saudi Arabia, February 1st. As long as Max doesn't get knocked out. If Max gets knocked out, he's not turning around in 2.5, 3 months. But there's a lot of moving pieces here, but there's a lot that goes into this main event because there's other fights that depend on the result of this fight. So that's my thoughts on the card as a whole. Fantastic card the whole way through. Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia always get incredibly stacked cards. Fantastic card. Come back around later this week. I'm going to be doing individual videos for a few of the fights and also live streams, all of that. The usual stuff, guys. So come back around. Let me know your thoughts on UFC 308 down below. Thanks. Hey guys, thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. It really helps me out a lot. If you're interested in supporting the channel further, then become a channel member today for access to members only live streams, vlogs, and some other members perks. So click the link in the description down below or the join button on our channel homepage to become a member today. If you're interested in some non-MMA content from me, go check out my personal channel, Wyatt's World, and go check out my weekly comedy podcast, What's Up Bro, with Wyatt and Bo. Both of those are linked in the description down below. Go watch this suggested video, and we'll see you next time.